Hello, and welcome to the Secrets of Happily Ever After podcast. I'm your host, Monica Tanner, and today's episode is going to be a quickie, super fun, kind of tying up a really busy month. So, if you've been following along, you know that May we lovingly refer to as Maycember, but for our family in particular this year, has been really exciting with lots of fun events and changes for our family. It started off on May 3rd, which is me and my husband's 23rd wedding anniversary, and also my oldest son married his beautiful bride on that afternoon. So May 3rd was my son's wedding and also my anniversary. So that's super fun. We get to share an anniversary. And he got married in a different state, and I was in charge of the luncheon. So we had rented an Airbnb. It was super fun because he spent his last night being single with our family. It was kind of the last night that our nuclear family got to spend together in a little Airbnb, and we got to laugh and give advice, and I was cooking, and we just got to spend that last little bit of time with him alone as our son. And now I have a daughter-in-law. So the wedding was amazing. It was so fun. We did it in her hometown, and she had lots of support from family and friends. And it was just all around so nice. So that is how the month started off. And then we drove home for my daughter to play in tennis districts. And then I drove back down to Utah with my younger daughter for a volleyball tournament, and then directly back home for my tennis player daughter to play in state. And we had a lot of company come in town because right after she played in state, she graduated from high school. So that was super cool, really fun to have my family in town to support her. She walked, got her diploma. It was really fun to host that and get to be a part of that. And then right as soon as that was over, we jumped in the car. Our company all went home. We jumped in the car and drove 11 hours down to our favorite place on earth, which is Lake Powell. And we stayed on a houseboat for a week. We took 9 friends with us. So my older daughter invited 4 friends. My younger daughter invited 4 friends. My son invited a friend. And then my son and his wife also came with us. So that was super cool. But it took a lot of preparation because you're basically camping on a houseboat in the middle of nowhere. So I had been cooking and prepping for all of this. We took 16 people from our area, and then the boat owner brought another 8 people. So there was 24 people total on the boat. I was the only mother. I was in charge of all of the food, but it was a wonderful week. And in the middle of all that was also Mother's Day at some point. And I've also been working on promoting my book, seeing my clients, and the month ended, May ended, with my 46th birthday. So I turned 46 just a couple of days ago, if you're listening or watching in real time. So that was the month of May. It was really packed, really full. We had some great podcast episodes in there. So if you have not yet listened to the episode on how to keep your connection with your spouse and your sanity during the very busy times, trust me, I recorded that episode with experience and in the busyness. So I can tell you for sure that one of the most important things that you can do is stay really close and connected to your partner, your teammate, to be able to make all of that run more smoothly. So today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about our trip to Lake Powell. It was super fun. I had my whole family of 7 now. My son and his wife were there, so it was really cool to get to see them interacting and being together. There was also an engaged couple, about to be engaged couples, and then a bunch of, girls that just graduated from high school and teenagers. So the youngest person on the boat was 13, and then I was the second oldest, the owner of the boat, who is a dear friend of ours. And I've talked about him on several podcasts, but his name is Matt Fairbanks. And he was there. His wife didn't come this time. She is training for a huge race, like where she hikes a really tall mountain. I can't remember the elevation now, but it's really high. And so she needed to stay and train for that. So he came on his own, and then my husband and I, and then all the rest of the kids were 25 years of age or younger. And so it was fun to spend time with that age group and also having these couples, this newlywed couple, this engaged couple, this about to be engaged couple, and then these single kind of kids who were now, pretty much of marrying age. And so it was a cool combination. And when they found out what I did for a living, they had lots of questions. So it was really fun to interact with them, to be able to, kind of give some advice and counsel on how they're doing. One of the boys who was there had told me this story about how he got in a fight with his girlfriend just before coming. It wasn't really a fight, but they had kind of a standoff because his girlfriend was coming late, so she wasn't there yet. And originally he was going to come down late with her, but at the last minute decided he wanted to come at the very beginning of the trip. So he was there a couple days before her. And when he changed the plans on her, she was a little upset. And he noticed that she was upset by kind of the thing that she usually does. And so we kind of talked through that, and I gave him some advice on that. I said, most people would do blank. And he was like, yeah, I totally did that. And so I gave him like a really cool skill that he could use, which kind of became a running joke the whole time we were on the boat because everybody was listening and they thought it was good advice. And so everyone was kind of practicing this skill that works not only in relationships, like a marriage or like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, romantic relationships, but it also works with your kids, with your coworkers, with your friends. It's a relational skill. So it works in any relationship that you're in. And I guarantee if you master this skill, the quality of your relationships will go up, and it's just like an emotional maturity kind of thing. So I'll share that with you. So basically he was like, my girlfriend was upset. And so she kind of stopped talking to me, and I could tell she was upset, but she wasn't really being forthcoming about what it was that she was upset about, but I kind of knew. So of course I was like, what's the problem? Like, why are you being so quiet or whatever? And I gave him this skill. So this is the skill. It is to start with, I noticed. So that is like the cheat code keyword. I noticed that after I told you that was changing my plans and I was going to go early to Lake Powell, I noticed that you got really quiet. So here is the keys to making this work effectively. I noticed is the phrase that you use. And then what comes after I noticed is a description that the security cam footage would show. So you're not saying, I noticed that you were really frustrated. I noticed that you freaked out or whatever. Those things would not be picked up on security cam footage. What he noticed is that she got really quiet after he told her about the change of plan, right? Because the security cam footage would pick up that she was not talking and that she was being quiet, right? And then you invite them to share with you what that's about. So I noticed you went really quiet after I told you about my plans of Lake Powell changed. I'd love to know more about what that is or why you went quiet or, what I can do to help or whatever, right? So that is the skill. It is a relational skill. Like I said, it will work in any relationship that you use it in. And it is awesome for creating open communication about something that's bothering somebody that versus saying, what the heck, what's your problem? Why aren't you talking? That creates a lot of defensiveness, closed offness, whereas this invitation I noticed really can open up some good quality conversation and help you understand more about the person that you're talking to, which is always the goal of relational communication. Okay, so that was really fun. I got to give that piece of advice and people listened, and then everybody was joking about it for the rest of the trip. And it was cool because I was confident that most of the people on that boat, especially those who were in romantic relationships or dating, went home with that skill. And so this same boy who he is getting really close to proposing to his girlfriend, we're really, really excited. They were such a darling couple. So excited for them. he also asked me at one point, what is your best advice for couples who are getting married? And I had to think about that for a second. And I thought, you know what? Here's the thing. My husband and I have been married for 23 years, but I will tell you that the beginning of our relationship was definitely rocky. And I was thinking about this a lot on the boat because right after our trip, my son and his wife and also our daughter, so three of them, they left right from the boat to go sell for the summer. So they're selling solar in Minnesota. And there was a point on the trip where I could tell that something was bothering my daughter-in-law. And it was so cool to watch my son and her, kind of work through it, resolve it. Everything ended up great, right? But I knew exactly what she was going through because I remember my husband and I got married and immediately took our honeymoon and went down to sell for the summer. And I remember hating that summer. It was really difficult for me as a newlywed because we had completely different schedules. I was waking up really early. I had to be to work by 7 in the morning and I would work often until 7 o'clock at night, where my husband's schedule, he didn't have to be to work until 11 and then he would often work until 11 o'clock at night. So they were long days and we were on very separate schedules. So by the time my husband got home from work in the night, I was exhausted and needed to get sleep so that I could be functional the next day. And he was definitely not waking up super early with me. And so I remember just having these feelings of, is this really what I signed up for? Like I thought we were going to have all this time together and we were going to have so much fun and we're going to do things together. And I barely ever see you. And I don't feel like we're spending any time together. And I remember like halfway through the summer, I just had this breakdown where I was like, I never get to see you. I'm not enjoying this. I didn't think this is what marriage would be like. And at first, he did not handle my crying very well. So early in our marriage, my husband did not do crying, which he's much better at it now with 4 children and, a wife that gets emotional often. He can handle it much better. But early in our marriage, so that shut him down immediately. So when he saw me crying, it wasn't like he's like, what's wrong? How can I help you? Can I snuggle you? Like, I want to make you feel better. He was like, whoa. And I think his reaction to crying was like, what did I do wrong? He's like, I'm about to get attacked. I want to stay far away from this situation. So that in and of itself didn't go well. But then once I calmed down and I wasn't crying and we could have a conversation about it, I just told him my feelings that like, this isn't what I signed up for. I thought this was going to be different. And he said, just hold on, wait until we get to school at BYU. And I promise things will be different. And he was right. I just had to hold on through that tough 3 months. And then we had a blast at college. We still had different schedules. I worked full time and he went to school full time. So he would be out late studying a lot, but we spent all of our money on a sports pass. And so we would go to the football games, the basketball games, the soccer games, the water polo games, the volleyball games, any game that we could get into with this pass, we did. And we also were very religious about our date nights. So we didn't have any money, but there was a movie theater that was close by and it had 50-cent tickets on Tuesday. And so we would go to Wendy's and each of us would get 2 things off the dollar menu. And then we would each buy a 50-cent movie ticket and we would see all of the good movies and eat dinner for $5. That was our date night. So there's been a lot of inflation since then, but that was so fun. But we did have our share of struggles. We didn't communicate very well. We didn't have a lot of relational skills. We were coming from 2 very different backgrounds, and it was hard to mesh our ideas and our experiences and things like that. So while we did have a lot of joy and fun, there was also a lot of painful times. So let me bring this back around. I have a heart for newlyweds. I know that it's difficult for 2 people who come from very different backgrounds or even similar backgrounds, but different people to figure out how to mesh their lives together and have the relational skills, because it's not your fault. Relational skills are not taught really anywhere. And so, my best advice for newlyweds is to find a relational life practitioner, so an RLT practitioner, and do a couple of sessions of either premarital or newlywed therapy together. And the reason why I think this is so important is because even if there are no problems yet, you get married and I see these kids, right? These newlyweds and these engaged and this madly in love. They're in this season of being madly in love, and what could ever go wrong, right? We love each other so much. What's the problem? What could ever be the problem, right? But there's so much hope and promise and excitement for the future. However, there are always things that come up. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be trials. There's going to be roadblocks and things that really challenge the relationship. And so getting good premarital counseling or newlywed, kind of seeing somebody as a newlywed, is a great way to set yourself up for success for a few reasons. Number one is you can learn a lot about yourself, about your relationship template, about your losing strategies, about where you fall on the relational or the trauma grid, right? There's a lot of things that a relational life therapist specifically can tell you about you and your partner. So these, I think, are very valuable things to kind of have the knowledge of going in, as well as give you a few skills. The first of which is how to really go from first consciousness to second consciousness, which that's a fancy way of saying, are you really in the driver's seat? Like, is your prefrontal cortex, your wise adult self, making the decisions, or are you in your complete, we call it the adaptive child? So are you having a knee-jerk reaction? Are you in protection mode, fight, flight, or flee? Are you acting from your amygdala is activated, you're triggered, you're responding not to your partner, but to something from your past? That's a great skill, is to be able to recognize that and get some really good skills as to how to take a break or get your prefrontal cortex back online before you do something which John Gottman calls a regrettable incident, right? Working with that and then learning some skills that will help you communicate better about things that are going to come up. So learning how to repair, learning how to make requests, learning how to, talk about I notice, which is kind of a soft startup. So what I do as a coach is I combine a lot of John Gottman and Terry Real and Sue Johnson and a few others that are just really solid. Emily Nagoski, all marriage researchers that have written books that are very knowledgeable. And I also gave some book recommendations, which I'll do for you here. 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work, Come As You Are, my new book, Bad Marriage Advice. All of those are really good fundamental books that can set you up for success. But I really think there's nothing better than having a few sessions just to set you up for success. So you'll kind of have your losing strategy profile. You'll know more about the dynamic that you're going to create in your relationship. I mean, you've probably been dating for a while, you're engaged, newly married. The dynamic is set, right? You're already operating under that dynamic. So learning about that dynamic, learning some skills to better communicate and repair after conflict. And so it's just a couple of sessions when there's no problem, when you're not feeling like really under fire. And then you've already established with someone. So when, not if, because I promise you you're going to face challenges, when you hit a stumbling block or, a bump in the road, or you need to make a big decision, or you're struggling through something, you're already with somebody who understands, who knows who you are, knows about your dynamic, understands you as a couple. So you're not starting from zero, that you'll feel comfortable going to this person and bringing up kind of what you're going through, and you can make progress through it very quickly. So my best advice for newlyweds is to go have a couple of sessions with an RLT practitioner. And so in light of that, I decided to create a very, very, very special offer because like I said, I have a heart for these newlyweds. I know it's not easy. Contrary to what people think, setting yourself up for success is so crucial. And so I'm offering 3 sessions to newlyweds or engaged couples. So either premarital counseling or newlywed sessions for the price of one. Now I can't do this for very long, but I don't have a lot scheduled for this summer. So as long as I'm not fully booked, which is going to happen in September, I do get really, really busy once school starts. But for this summer, at least, I'm offering 3 sessions for the price of one. Now you can do this for yourselves. You can do this for a newlywed couple or an engaged couple that you know, your kids or your kids' friends or anyone who is getting married. Now, this can be a first, second, third marriage. It doesn't matter. This is a really good way to set that couple up for success. So if you're interested in doing that, I want you to go to monicatanner.com and click on the work with me, and we'll set up a 30-minute consultation. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes if it's not for you, but I'll tell you how to set up 3 sessions. And obviously the couple will work with the couple's schedule to set up these 3 sessions, but you can pay for it. And then we'll make sure that, I'll send a really cute card that you can present to the couple either at their wedding or their engagement party or a shower or however you want to gift that to them. We'll make sure that it's really special and it looks awesome. It is a gift from the heart. I think it is such a valuable gift that you can give these kids that are to be able to start off on the right foot, and we will go from there. So you can either send me an inquiry, and my email is Moni, MONI, at monicatanner.com, or just go to monicatanner.com and click on the link to schedule. So thank you guys so much for listening. Again, I hope that you can feel my passion for these engaged couples and these newlywed couples. They are so special. There is so much excitement and promise and hope in them right now. And if we can just give them a little bit of boost and some skills, we can really set them up for success. So I hope that you'll take me up on this very special offer. And I hope that you'll join us next week for another fantastic episode. And say again, right here, same time, same place next week. And until then, happy marriaging, happy engaging, happy relationing. I hope that these episodes are helpful for you, and I will see you very soon.